Emisión.net.
Hello again and welcome to Letter from England, broadcasting for AC Press and the Spanish Evangelical Alliance. I suppose some people might think that a headline which says that the left and right square up over an abortion law is hardly news. Certainly what's new, they would say. And indeed, battle lines are drawn rather as they were here 23 years ago. In 1985, the Socialist Party passed the first abortion law in the history of Spain, whilst the main opposition parties of the day, Alianza Popular and UCD, that's the Christian Democrats, voted against. Now the Popular Party, successor to the Alianza Popular, thinks that the 1985 law is enough, whilst the Socialist government is again advocating a revised, or is advocating more legislation to make abortion more easily, revising the current law. And in the middle are the Catalan and Basque nationalist parties, hovering between the two. Sandra Moneo, Popular Party spokesman, says the reason her party voted against the creation of a subcommittee to discuss the revision of the legislation is that there's no public demand for such a debate. The opposition party, which includes both Catholics and agnostic/atheists, fears the government will try to use such debate to label them as retrograde, just as they did over their opposition to homosexual marriage. Almost all opinion polls on the abortion subject indicate that a majority of people are actually in favour of a law which permits abortion up to a certain number of weeks. The left, as might be imagined, received the idea of a subcommittee with enthusiasm, whilst the nationalist parties, whose memberships include a strongly conservative element, expressed doubt about the process. The Catalan group, for instance, CIU, says on moral issues they give their MPs a free vote, not least because the two component parties that make up the CIU have very different views on this kind of issue. Therefore they've abstained in the subcommittee vote. Meanwhile, the Basque Nationalist Party says it's not against such a committee, but expresses grave doubts about the content of any future bill. Meanwhile, the United Left and Catalan Republican parties both supported the idea, insisting that some women who have abortions, as well as the doctors who perform the operations, are being treated as criminals. Technically, of course, if they're breaking the law, they will be. In fact, these two parties had already tried to get the abortion law revised in the last Parliament, but were prevented from doing so at the time by the Socialists. Yet this time the government seems set on a major revision of the law, with three main changes. The revised legislation would allow an abortion in the case of rape up to 12 weeks, fetal disformity up to 22 weeks, and the psychological harm of the mother. No limit there, and virtually no clear definition either. Hardly surprisingly, 97% of women who ask for an abortion use this last loophole. Well, the Ministry of Equality has appointed a panel of experts, but it doesn't include any pro-life representatives. It must report back within 6 months. Carmen Monton, Socialist spokesman, accused the Popular Party of trying to dodge the debate, claiming that the new law will correct the defects of the old one and guarantee abortion on the national health in the whole of Spain, which does rather seem to be the whole point of the exercise. Hence the choice of experts on the panel, perhaps. But of course, this final category of psychological harm rather opens a can of worms and can be used in virtually any circumstance. If the law simply permitted abortions for any reason, say up to 14 weeks, 90% of them would be legalized at one stroke. This would leave just special cases, so-called, such as fetal deformity or major health risks to the mother. But where do evangelicals stand in all of this? Well, sadly, the historic position of evangelicals has been one of silence rather than active involvement. Pro-life campaigns have often been avoided by evangelicals, perhaps because they seem to be dominated by Roman Catholics and evangelicals are uncomfortable with perhaps part of the agenda, but also because evangelicals don't seem entirely clear as to where they stand on the issue. And the lack of a clear ethical, biblical stance by evangelicals is rather sad, I think. No major evangelical organisation, none of the representative bodies, have yet pronounced on this law. Maybe they're waiting for the right and the most opportune moment to do so. But one fears that, once again, the silence of evangelicals on this issue will be deafening. and will give the impression that Protestants, by and large, are happy with this latest legislation, which undoubtedly will be passed. Abortion will become easier, and once again, it's to be feared that evangelicals won't have stood up and been counted on the issue of the protection of life. From a Christian perspective, surely life begins at conception, and life is precious to God. So where will we stand? And will we be heard? Will we even say anything? We can only hope so. Thank you for listening. We're found at emission.net each week. Goodbye for now.
Emisión.net